I lost $5,000 in just 1 week to a woman I thought loved me. She invited me to a luxury resort in Boracay, promised me the romance of a lifetime, and disappeared after I paid for everything. The shock and betrayal left me devastated, questioning everything I thought I knew about relationships here. Thousands of Western men fall into these hidden traps annually in the Philippines, lured into what seems like paradise only to discover a painful reality waiting beneath the surface. Today, I'm breaking down the 10 most dangerous traps that foreigners encounter when dating here, so you don't have to experience the same heartbreak I did. The slipped and stripped trap. Imagine this. You wake up in your hotel room with a pounding headache. The room is spinning. You reach for your phone to check the time, but it's gone. So is your wallet and your passport. The last thing you remember is having a drink at that bar last night with that friendly person who approached you. This scenario plays out with alarming frequency in the Philippines for unsuspecting tourists who fall victim to what locals call the slipped and stripped trap. A wave of panic and helplessness washes over victims as they realize they're stranded without identification, money, or means of communication, like waking into a real-life nightmare. These sophisticated operations can leave you penniless, documentationless, and dealing with a hangover from hell. Take the case of Michael, an Australian businessman who visited Manila last year. He accepted a drink from a woman who'd been chatting with him at a bar in Makati. The next thing he remembered was waking up 16 hours later in his hotel room with over $3,000 missing from his bank account, his credit cards maxed out, and his passport nowhere to be found. Michael spent 3 days at his embassy sorting out emergency documentation just to be able to fly home. The drugs used in these operations work with frightening efficiency. Within minutes of being drugged, 15-20 minutes, confusion, impaired judgment, difficulty speaking, 30 minutes, compliant behavior, walking and talking but unable to make decisions, 60 minutes, complete amnesia for events occurring under the influence. Rohypnol, often called roofies, is colorless and odorless, making it impossible to detect in your drink. GHB can cause unconsciousness within 15 minutes when mixed with alcohol, while ketamine creates a dissociative state where victims remain semi-conscious but completely suggestible. The perpetrators rely on these substances to render you helpless while maintaining just enough motor function to walk out of the bar. These operations involve coordinated teams with distinct roles. Spotters identify vulnerable targets, particularly those displaying cash or expensive items. Drink handlers tamper with beverages, sometimes involving complicit bar staff. Navigators guide drugged victims out, posing as helpful friends, telling concerned onlookers, "My buddy had too much to drink." The navigators escort victims to ATMs before taking them back to hotels. Some victims report hazy memories of visiting multiple cash machines, withdrawing maximum daily limits while drugged. The morning after reveals comprehensive losses, physical valuables, drained bank accounts, maxed credit cards, and sometimes fraudulent transfer apps installed on phones. Certain areas in the Philippines have become hotspots for these scams. In Manila, parts of Makati and Malate see numerous reports, with P. Burgos Street having multiple establishments with repeated incidents. Angeles City's Fields Avenue, particularly bars catering to foreigners, and Cebu's Mango Square area around Mango Avenue have gained notoriety for similar schemes. These scams effectively target people when they're most vulnerable, relaxing on vacation. Perpetrators skillfully identify solo travelers or those unfamiliar with local customs, often striking during a tourist's first few nights before they've developed any street smarts about local dangers. The sophistication extends beyond drugging. These operations frequently involve stealing hotel keycards, which typically display room numbers. Access to your room means access to everything you've left behind: luggage, electronics, and other valuables. Some victims report returning to completely emptied rooms. To protect yourself, implement these precautions. Control your drinks. Only consume bottled beer you open yourself. keeping your thumb over the opening when not drinking. Watch mixed drinks being prepared and never leave your glass unattended. Pay as you go rather than running a tab to prevent inflated bills for drinks you don't remember ordering. Secure valuables in your hotel safe, carrying only necessities for the evening. Be cautious of strangers showing unusual interest in your nationality, accommodation, or travel duration. While many locals are genuinely hospitable, predators use these questions to assess vulnerability, particularly targeting first-time visitors. Implement a buddy system when possible. Traveling with companions significantly reduces risk, as operators typically target solo travelers. If alone, join organized group activities where safety in numbers provides protection. Technology offers additional safeguards. Enable location sharing with trusted contacts. Set spending limits requiring verification for large purchases, and consider carrying a secondary dummy wallet with expired cards and minimal cash to surrender if confronted directly. If victimized despite precautions, report immediately to local police and your embassy. While recovering stolen items is rare, prompt reporting helps authorities identify patterns and target problematic establishments. Your embassy can assist with emergency documentation for your return home. Don't let paranoia ruin your trip. Most Filipinos are honest, welcoming people proud of their hospitality reputation. Taking sensible precautions allows you to enjoy the Philippines without falling prey to these schemes. Situational awareness remains your strongest defense. Notice who watches you at ATMs. Be wary of sudden friendships, and trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. These simple habits differentiate between a memorable vacation and a nightmare scenario. The underage setup. While being drugged and robbed is terrifying, there's another trap that can destroy more than just your finances. It can destroy your reputation and freedom forever. The underage setup trap is particularly sinister because it plays on the worst social fears a foreigner might have, being labeled as someone who harmed a child. Let me tell you about James, an American who visited Manila last year. After dating a woman named Maria for just 2 weeks, she invited him to her apartment to help fix her air conditioner. James, wanting to be helpful, agreed without hesitation. When he arrived, Maria offered him a drink while she got changed. While waiting, a teenage girl entered, introduced herself as Maria's sister, and sat uncomfortably close to James. Before James could process what was happening, the apartment door burst open. A man claiming to be the girl's father stormed in, followed by another man in what appeared to be a police uniform. They shouted accusations, claiming James had been inappropriate with the 15-year-old girl. Despite his protests, they showed him photos taken through the window, deliberately framed to appear compromising. This trap operates like a baited hook. The seemingly innocent request for help is the worm that conceals the painful barb beneath. The warning signs were all there: the rushed relationship, the urgent request for assistance that only James could provide, and the isolated location that removed him from public safety. The setup follows a methodical pattern. First, the dating phase establishes just enough trust to get you to an isolated location. Second, the private setting creates the perfect environment for staging the deception. Third, the underage individual is strategically positioned near you while evidence is collected. Finally, the sudden confrontation by authorities creates immediate psychological pressure. These confrontations happen rapidly, often within 20-30 minutes of arrival. The family members and police officers are almost always accomplices wearing partial uniforms or carrying fake badges. In James's case, the father demanded $5,000 to settle this quietly. The officer explained that without payment, James faced decades in a Filipino prison, emphasizing how foreigners fare poorly in the local justice system. The psychological tactics are calibrated to exploit specific fears: Filipino prisons, embassy reactions, reputation damage, and potential travel restrictions. The family members perform emotional displays, crying, shouting about their child's honor, or making threats about community justice. The effectiveness of these scams stems from the real-world context of significant penalties for crimes against minors in the Philippines. Scammers leverage legitimate legal consequences to make their threats believable. These aren't isolated incidents, but organized operations repeated across different locations. The entire family often works together across multiple cities, targeting different foreigners. They select apartments with minimal security in neighborhoods where actual police presence is limited. Some groups maintain fake social media profiles for all participants, creating digital backstories that withstand casual investigation. In Cebu, investigators documented a single apartment that had been used for 8 similar extortion attempts against different foreigners over just 3 months, with the same underage sister working with 3 different older sisters to bring in targets. Prevention checklist. Meet only in public places during early relationship stages. Choose coffee shops, restaurants, and malls to verify the person's identity. Check social media history. Look for accounts with a natural progression of posts over years rather than recently created profiles. 3. Research their workplace if mentioned. Legitimate employment should be verifiable. 4. Document your interactions by sharing your location with trusted friends. 5. If home visits occur, bring a trusted friend. Scammers typically abandon plans when witnesses are present. 6. Be wary of urgent requests for specialized help that only you can provide. This is often the bait for the trap. Understand how legitimate law enforcement operates in the Philippines. Real police don't negotiate payments on the spot or accept cash to make problems go away. In genuine situations, you would be formally processed at a police station with access to legal representation and your embassy. Be diligent about age verification. The Philippines has strict documentation requirements, particularly in potentially sensitive situations. Legitimate ID cards have specific security features, and verifying someone's age is prudent, not offensive. If trapped despite taking precautions, remain calm. Don't admit to anything, don't sign anything, and don't transfer money. Request to call your embassy immediately. Legitimate authorities will allow this, while scammers will try to prevent outside contact. State clearly that you want to speak with actual police at a real police station. The threat of genuine law enforcement involvement often causes scammers to retreat. Document everything possible. Discreetly record interactions on your phone if you can. Note names, badge numbers, and other identifying details to help identify perpetrators later. Remember that real cases of harm to minors are serious crimes deserving proper investigation. These scams exploit legitimate child protection concerns, making it harder for actual victims to be believed. By refusing to participate in these extortion schemes, you're protecting yourself and standing against the exploitation of genuine child protection systems. The baby trap. From fake police to fake pregnancies, some traps don't threaten your freedom, but instead target your future. What happens when that message arrives, claiming you're going to be a father, complete with ultrasound images that could be from anyone's pregnancy? Take Mark's experience in Cebu last year. After a 2-month relationship with a woman he met at a popular beach resort, he returned to Canada only to receive a message with a photo of a positive pregnancy test and the words, "We need to talk about our baby." Within weeks, he was sending $300 monthly for prenatal care, despite never seeing medical records or having a video call with a doctor. This scenario plays out frequently in the Philippines, where some women deliberately fabricate or manipulate pregnancy situations to secure ongoing financial support from foreign men. It begins innocently enough, a casual relationship, perhaps some carelessness with contraception, followed by the life-changing announcement. What makes this trap particularly effective in the Philippines are the powerful cultural and religious factors at play. The Philippines remains the only country besides Vatican City where divorce is illegal. Once married, you're legally bound for life unless you pursue an annulment, which can take years and cost thousands of dollars. This legal reality means that pregnancy often leads directly to marriage discussions, especially in more traditional families. Catholic values remain deeply embedded in Filipino culture, with approximately 80% of the population identifying as Catholic. Family pressure to do the right thing when a pregnancy occurs can be intense. A foreign partner may find himself facing the woman's expectations alongside those of her entire extended family. Consider Juan's situation, where his girlfriend's parents showed up at his hotel demanding a meeting about family responsibilities just days after she claimed pregnancy. Another traveler, Michael, described being invited to a family gathering that turned into an impromptu engagement celebration after pregnancy news was announced, all before any verification. The methods used range from relatively simple to surprisingly sophisticated. At the basic level, some women deliberately sabotage contraception, puncturing condoms or claiming to use birth control when they aren't. Others skip directly to fabrication, using purchased or borrowed pregnancy tests, ultrasound images downloaded from the internet, or photos obtained from friends or family members. The emotional manipulation involved is carefully calibrated. Initial messages typically balance vulnerability with accountability. "I'm scared about this baby, but we created this life together." This framing immediately establishes joint responsibility while making it difficult for the target to question the pregnancy without seeming callous. The pattern typically starts with requests for basic support, money for prenatal vitamins and doctor visits, usually modest amounts of $100–200 monthly. Once established, complications develop, requiring additional funds. By the third or fourth month, many victims report sending $500–800 monthly without verification. Ryan, an American businessman who frequently travels to Manila, shared his experience. "After the initial shock, I started sending money for what I thought were legitimate medical needs. 4 months in, she said there were complications requiring hospitalization. I sent $2,000 for that emergency. When I insisted on video calling from the hospital, she became evasive, claiming visitors weren't allowed due to COVID restrictions. That's when I realized something wasn't right." The geographical distance creates significant verification challenges. Medical systems differ between countries, documentation may be in unfamiliar formats, and language barriers complicate direct communication with healthcare providers. Privacy laws make it difficult to independently verify medical information without the woman's cooperation. Some scammers have developed sophisticated approaches, enlisting friends in healthcare to provide legitimate-looking documents or stage fake ultrasound appointments during video calls. Some maintain the deception through the entire pregnancy, eventually claiming a miscarriage or demanding larger delivery expenses before disappearing. Foreign men often want to do the right thing. The fear of being an absent father drives many to continue payments despite growing suspicions. However, there are practical ways to protect yourself while still being responsible. First, request specific medical documentation. Legitimate ultrasound care produces regular documented visits, ultrasound reports, with the mother's name and date clearly visible, and medical records that follow a consistent format. Second, request video calls that include the healthcare provider. A legitimate pregnancy involves real medical appointments, where at least the medical setting can be verified. Consistent refusals represent significant red flags. Third, if the relationship continues to the birth, insist on DNA testing before establishing long-term financial arrangements. Legitimate testing can be arranged through recognized facilities in the Philippines, with results sent directly to both parties. Fourth, understand the legal realities in both countries. Child support obligations are enforceable internationally, but require proper legal documentation and court decisions, not just private arrangements. Fifth, maintain respectful but clear boundaries throughout the process. Expressing willingness to support a child if proven to be yours while requiring verification protects everyone involved. David, who spent 2 years sending support for a child that didn't exist, offers this advice. If you're not getting straight answers or if verification attempts are met with emotional manipulation, Be prepared to make difficult decisions. At some point I had to accept I was being scammed despite wanting to believe I had a child. The key takeaway is simple. Verification is not an insult, but a necessary protection. When life-changing claims are made across international borders, it's important to note that most pregnancies claimed by Filipinas are genuine. The Philippines has one of the highest unintended pregnancy rates in Asia, and limited access to contraception is a real issue. The challenge lies in distinguishing legitimate needs from manipulation. When faced with urgent messages claiming life-changing news, ask yourself, am I responding to facts or fears? Would I make the same decisions if emotions weren't running high? The walking ATM syndrome. Beyond fake pregnancies lies an even more common trap: becoming someone's personal bank rather than their partner. Picture discovering that the woman tearfully begging you for hospital money for her mother is simultaneously extracting identical payments from men in Australia, Germany, and Canada, all while her perfectly healthy mother watches television at home. This is the walking ATM syndrome, where a foreigner's primary value becomes their regular financial contributions. The term originates from Western men's experiences of feeling valued only when their wallet is open, their resources flowing like a constantly dripping faucet that slowly drains their savings. David from California experienced this firsthand. After dating Elena from Cebu for 4 months, he noticed a troubling pattern emerging. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, there was some kind of emergency. The requests began innocuously. Her mother needed medicine, then her sister couldn't pay tuition, followed by an electricity bill crisis. I sent over $3,000 before I realized something was wrong. David recalls, his trust evaporating when he discovered Elena was running identical scripts with 4 other men simultaneously. Each boyfriend believed he alone was helping with genuine emergencies, while the money actually funded shopping sprees and nights out. David's awakening came when both Elena and her supposed cousin, actually her best friend, sent nearly identical messages about a hospitalized grandmother, revealing the coordinated scam. The warning signs often appear subtly at first. Watch for frequent mentions of financial struggles shortly after establishing an emotional connection. Requests typically start small, perhaps 1,000 pesos, about $20 for phone credits, then gradually escalate as the relationship progresses. Pay attention to emergency descriptions lacking specific details or changing when questioned. Another red flag is reluctance to video call when asking for money. Jana, a relationship counselor in Manila, explains, it's much harder to lie effectively on video. You might notice they're in a salon, getting their nails done while claiming they're at a hospital, or see shopping bags in the background during a supposed financial crisis. What makes this trap particularly effective is its operation as a coordinated effort. Filipino social networks are incredibly tight-knit, and some women work together to maximize their earnings. A study by the Philippine Commission on Filipinos Overseas found that in certain communities, groups of 5 to 8 women systematically target Western men online, sharing information about which approaches yield the highest returns. These informal networks operate in provinces like Cebu, Davao, and areas of Manila. They sometimes work from internet cafes, maintaining relationships with multiple foreign men simultaneously. They share successful scripts, compare earnings, and craft convincing emergency scenarios together. Social media groups with coded names like Padala Queens, referring to remittance recipients, exist where strategies are exchanged. Common tactics include photographing the same sick relative for multiple boyfriends, creating fake hospital documentation, or having friends pose as concerned neighbors confirming emergencies. The cultural context makes these scenarios believable. In Filipino culture, there's a legitimate expectation that men will be providers. PAGSA support is the understanding that affection is partly demonstrated through financial support. Most Filipinos grow up seeing male relatives taking responsibility for both immediate and extended family needs. Problems arise when this cultural norm becomes weaponized. Legitimate needs transform into manufactured crises, Reasonable expectations become endless demands. Mutual support deteriorates into one-sided extraction. Psychologically, these operations employ sophisticated tactics, intermittent reinforcement, where affection comes unpredictably, creates powerful dependency. The boyfriend becomes increasingly desperate to please. Guilt becomes a tool through references to suffering children or sick parents. If you really loved me, you would help my family. Becomes emotional blackmail, exploiting Western men's desire to appear generous and caring. The promise of future togetherness provides purpose beyond present difficulties and justifies ongoing financial support. This forward-looking perspective keeps men investing long after they should recognize the pattern. Robert, a relationship coach specializing in international dating, has documented hundreds of cases. I've seen men who sent upwards of $20,000 over 2 years without ever meeting in person. The emotional investment becomes so significant that acknowledging you've been used primarily as an ATM is incredibly painful. To protect yourself, establish clear financial boundaries early. When the first crisis arrives, try the emergency test. Offer non-financial assistance. If your girlfriend claims her mother needs treatment, offer to speak with the doctor or research alternative support programs rather than immediately sending money. Verify emergencies independently. Request specific details. Which hospital? What's the doctor's name? What treatment is needed? Legitimate emergencies withstand basic questioning. Hostile responses to reasonable inquiries signal danger. Learn to recognize manipulation patterns. The cycle typically includes an urgent crisis, expressions of desperation, gratitude after sending money, heightened affection, then gradual distance until the next emergency. When this pattern repeats multiple times, it's rarely coincidental. Genuine relationships involve reciprocity. While financial disparities between Western men and Filipinos are common, authentic partners contribute non-monetarily. Does she spend time getting to know your interests? Does she remember important dates or check in during difficult times? These indicate genuine investment beyond financial extraction. Be alert to boyfriend compartmentalization, where communication happens only during specific windows with little flexibility, often indicating you're being slotted into a schedule alongside other foreign boyfriends. Many Filipinos in relationships with foreigners do face legitimate financial challenges. The Philippines has significant economic inequality, limited social safety nets, and cultural expectations of supporting extended family. The key is distinguishing between someone who values you as a partner while sometimes needing support versus someone who views you primarily as a financial resource. The green card goal. While financial exploitation drains your wallet, another common trap targets something potentially more valuable: your citizenship. What happens when "I love you" actually translates to "I love your passport"? 2 weeks into dating Marites, James was thrilled to receive a marriage proposal until he realized she'd spent more time researching visa requirements than getting to know him. Immigration-motivated relationships form a significant pattern in the Philippines' Western dating landscape. According to migration statistics, over 35,000 Filipinos annually receive spouse or fiancé visas to Western countries like the United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom. The Philippines consistently ranks among the top 5 countries for marriage-based immigration to these nations. This correlation exists because for many Filipinos facing limited economic opportunities at home, marriage to a foreigner represents one of the few accessible pathways to working abroad. The warning signs appear early, but are easily missed when emotions run high. Like a high-speed train without functioning brakes, these relationships accelerate toward commitment with dangerous momentum. When Maritz proposed marriage to James after just 14 days together, her urgency stemmed from visa application timelines, not overwhelming passion. She had already researched the precise requirements for spousal immigration to his country before their second date. This acceleration toward commitment follows specific patterns. Your partner might show excessive interest in your citizenship status, asking detailed questions about immigration processes before your relationship is solidified. They might casually mention which countries have the easiest immigration pathways, or compare the benefits of different foreign passports. These conversations reveal a focus on your nationality rather than your personality. Another telltale sign is immediate introduction to family members who participate in pushing the relationship forward. In Filipino culture, family approval is important, but when multiple relatives immediately embrace you and encourage quick marriage, it may indicate a collective investment in your immigration potential. One American man reported meeting his girlfriend's entire extended family on their third date, with her uncle immediately asking whether he planned to bring her back to the United States. The visa motivation becomes evident when your partner displays inconsistent knowledge, memorizing complex immigration requirements while showing minimal interest in your personal life. Thomas from Canada noticed his Filipino girlfriend could recite every document needed for a spousal visa application, but couldn't remember basic details about his work or family. She knew the timeline for citizenship eligibility but forgot his birthday twice. Immigration officials recognize these patterns. A 2021 analysis shows that Philippines' Western marriage applications face higher scrutiny due to this history. Consular officers specifically look for relationships where the foreign partner demonstrates little knowledge about their spouse beyond basic information, suggesting a transactional arrangement. The family pressure driving these relationships is considerable. In the Philippines, successful migration of one family member can transform the economic prospects of an entire extended family. Studies show that overseas Filipino workers typically support 5 to 7 family members through remittances. When Sarah married Michael from Australia, her parents, siblings, and cousins viewed her marriage as their pathway to financial stability. This collective investment creates enormous pressure on Filipinas to secure relationships with foreigners, regardless of compatibility. What's particularly heartbreaking is the relationship trajectory after visa approval. Immigration data reveals that approximately 40% of Filipino Western marriages dissolve within 3 years of successful immigration, often soon after citizenship or permanent residency is secured. Initial excitement gives way to growing detachment, culminating in betrayal. Carl from Germany described how his wife's personality completely transformed 2 months after receiving her residence permit. The affectionate partner who couldn't bear being apart suddenly wanted separate bedrooms and began discussing divorce options. The emotional cost extends beyond heartbreak. Many men report feeling used after realizing their entire relationship was essentially a visa transaction. The financial impact is equally severe. Beyond supporting a partner, failed marriages involving immigration often result in complex legal expenses, potential alimony, and continuing sponsorship obligations. Government records from countries like Australia and Canada show that sponsoring a spouse creates financial responsibility that can persist even after divorce. James discovered this painful reality when he remained financially liable for his ex-wife for 3 years after their marriage ended. Despite clear evidence, she had married him specifically for immigration benefits. To protect yourself, maintain appropriate relationship pacing, regardless of how strong the initial attraction feels. Immigration experts recommend dating for at least a year before considering marriage to anyone from a different country. This timeline allows you to experience various situations together and observe how your partner handles different circumstances. Consider a prenuptial agreement that addresses both financial aspects and potential immigration situations. While this might seem unromantic, a truly loving partner will understand your need for mutual protection. The conversation itself can be revealing. Strong resistance often indicates motivations beyond love. Educate yourself about immigration processes before discussing them with a potential partner. Knowledge of typical visa fraud patterns will help you recognize red flags in your own relationship. Immigration attorneys report that informed sponsors are significantly less likely to become victims of visa-motivated marriages. Pay attention to how your partner discusses long-term plans. Someone primarily interested in immigration benefits typically focuses exclusively on life in your country, showing little interest in potentially living in the Philippines. They may resist any suggestion of building a life together in their homeland, even temporarily. Most importantly, trust your instincts when something feels off. Richard from Australia ignored his concern when his fiancée insisted on detailed discussions about citizenship timelines during their second date. 6 months after arriving in Melbourne, she left him for another Filipino immigrant, admitting she had never loved him but needed his sponsorship to enter the country. Genuine Philippines-Western relationships do exist. Thousands of loving marriages between Filipinos and Westerners thrive each year. The key distinction lies in seeing your nationality as an incidental fact about you, rather than your primary attraction. The online money drain. Beyond passport-motivated relationships lies an even more insidious trap, where romantic targets never even reach Philippine soil. The digital romance scam represents perhaps the most financially devastating trap for foreign men interested in Filipino women, precisely because the entire relationship exists online, with victims sending thousands of dollars to partners they've never met face-to-face. Take Michael from Toronto, who struck up a conversation with Jasmine through a dating app, specifically for Western men seeking Filipina partners. Their connection seemed instant and special. Within days, they were video chatting for hours, with Jasmine showing remarkable interest in Michael's life, remembering tiny details about his work and family. Within 2 weeks, they exchanged "I love you" messages. "She made me feel like the most important person in the world," Michael later admitted to friends. "We had deep conversations about our dreams, fears, everything. I truly believed I'd found someone who understood me completely." The carefully manufactured intimacy created a powerful emotional bond, one that made Michael vulnerable when the first request for money came. It started innocently. Jasmine's phone acted up during a video call. She needed load prepaid phone credits to continue their conversations. At just 500 pesos, around $10, Michael readily transferred the money through a remittance service. This initial small request served as a test. Once Jasmine confirmed Michael's willingness to help financially, the requests escalated. Within a month, her grandmother needed medical treatment costing $200. Her younger brother's school fees of $350 became urgently due. By month 3, she needed $1,500 for emergency surgery. The relationship was like a beautifully wrapped gift box containing poison, attractive on the outside, fatal within. Michael received daily affection, provocative photos, and promises of a magnificent future together, all while crisis moments appeared that only his money could solve. These scammers leverage something called variable reward theory, explains Dr. Eliza Santos, a behavioral psychologist who studies online relationship dynamics. They create an addictive cycle where the victim never knows when they'll receive affection, praise, or sexual attention, but knows these rewards will come eventually if they comply with financial requests. Sophisticated operations employ strategic vulnerability. When Michael mentioned feeling alienated from his family, Jasmine confided similar experiences. These false narratives of shared struggles create bonds that make questioning the relationship feel like betrayal. In cities like Cebu and Manila, investigators have uncovered organized chat centers where operators maintain relationships with multiple foreign targets simultaneously. These facilities resemble call centers, complete with scripts, profile management software, and training on psychological manipulation techniques. One raid in Cebu uncovered a facility where 35 operators managed over 200 fake profiles, each maintaining relationships with 3 to 8 foreign men. The operation collected approximately $1.2 million annually. Workers received commission based on money extracted from targets. Thomas Chen, a cybersecurity specialist who helps romance scam victims, explains, they maintain detailed dossiers on each target, tracking personal information, conversation history, financial capacity, and emotional vulnerabilities. Some even use AI tools to suggest optimal times for financial requests. When Michael suggested visiting the Philippines after 4 months of daily communication, the excuses began. First came an aunt's funeral. When Michael rescheduled, a typhoon struck. His third attempt was thwarted by Jasmine's sudden new job opportunity. Each cancelled meeting came with emotional manipulation. Jasmine appeared devastated on video calls, crying and expressing how desperately she wanted to meet. She masterfully turned Michael's disappointment into sympathy, even prompting him to send comfort gifts after each cancellation. 6 months in, Michael had sent over $10,000. The breaking point came when Jasmine's brother was kidnapped with a ransom demand of $5,000. When Michael expressed skepticism and insisted on police documentation, communication became spotty. The woman he believed loved him began responding with increasing delays, then stopped altogether. The most sophisticated scammers have exit strategies, Chen notes. When they sense a victim becoming suspicious or reaching financial limits, they either engineer a dramatic final extraction or slowly ghost the relationship. The technological sophistication continues evolving. Some scammers use deepfake technology for convincing video calls. Others employ split-screen setups where the person on camera reads cues provided by a relationship manager, orchestrating multiple scams simultaneously. Protecting yourself requires strict adherence to fundamental rules. Never send money to someone you haven't met in person, regardless of the emergency. Verify identities through multiple channels. Conduct reverse image searches on profile pictures and request video calls at unexpected times. Maintain emotional perspective by discussing the relationship with trusted friends who can provide objective feedback. Research common scam patterns and excuses. If your online partner's life seems filled with consecutive emergencies that only your money can solve, recognize this exploitation pattern. Understand that genuine relationships develop gradually and involve mutual exchange. If you're consistently giving without reciprocation beyond digital affection, reassess the relationship's authenticity. Many victims know something isn't right, explains Dr. Santos, but they've invested so much emotionally that acknowledging the deception becomes more painful than continuing to believe in the relationship. This psychological investment, more than financial considerations, keeps many trapped. Michael eventually joined a support group for romance scam victims, where he discovered his experience followed an almost identical pattern to dozens of others. The healing process began when he accepted that Jasmine likely wasn't even the woman in the photos and videos, just an operator implementing a proven script designed to extract maximum financial gain. The communication breakdown. Michael's story with Jasmine reveals how easily digital deception works across borders. But what about when you're standing face to face with your Filipina partner and still completely misunderstanding each other? Even legitimate relationships that survive the initial trust hurdles often crash into an invisible barrier that neither person sees coming until it's too late. Take John and Lynn's seemingly simple dinner plans in Manila. When John suggested trying a new upscale restaurant, Lynn smiled brightly and said, "Yes, that sounds good." But when the evening arrived, she appeared distant and uncomfortable. Throughout the meal, her responses grew shorter, her smile tighter. By dessert, they were barely speaking. John was baffled. She had agreed to this restaurant enthusiastically. What went wrong? What John didn't understand was that Lynn had actually been reluctant about the restaurant all along. In Filipino culture, direct refusal is often avoided to preserve harmony, a concept called pakisama. Her yes wasn't agreement, but rather an attempt to avoid disappointing him. She couldn't afford such an expensive meal, but wouldn't say so directly to save him from embarrassment. The entire evening became a pressure cooker of unexpressed concern. Filipino communication patterns prioritize relationship preservation over literal truth. Maria Santos, a cultural psychologist at the University of the Philippines, explains, Many Filipinos will go to great lengths to avoid causing someone to lose face or experience higher, a complex emotion combining shame, embarrassment, and social discomfort. This often means saying yes when they mean maybe or even no. This indirect communication style creates challenges for straightforward Westerners, accustomed to taking statements at face value. When a Filipino says, "I'll try my best to be there," it might actually mean, "I can't come but don't want to disappoint you." Similarly, "Let me think about it," often functions as a gentle refusal. The Filipino time phenomenon, where punctuality is flexible, reflects a culture where preserving relationships takes precedence over rigid schedules. Communication extends far beyond words, like a radio that transmits on multiple frequencies simultaneously. While Westerners often tune in primarily to the verbal channel, Filipinos receive and transmit critical information through non-verbal signals. Robert, an American living in Cebu, discovered this when his girlfriend would say nothing was wrong, while clearly withdrawing emotionally. "It took me months to realize that her silence wasn't stubbornness but communication itself," he explains. In Filipino interactions, silence often conveys discomfort or disagreement. Consider how John missed Lynn's signals during their restaurant experience. Her tight smile, minimal eye contact, and slight hesitation when viewing the menu all communicated discomfort. But John focused exclusively on her verbal yes. Had he noticed her quickly glancing at prices or her subtle shifting when the waiter approached, he might have understood her true feelings. Non-verbal cues carry tremendous weight in Filipino communication. Raised eyebrows might signal agreement, while a quick lip purse indicates disagreement. A sharp intake of breath often signals surprise or offense. These subtle signals easily fly under the radar for foreigners focused primarily on spoken words. The smile barrier further complicates matters. Filipinos often smile in uncomfortable situations, when receiving criticism, or even when upset, the exact opposite of when many Westerners would smile. This can lead foreign partners to miss emotional distress entirely, misreading a tight smile as genuine happiness rather than a stress response. Linguistics professor Dr. Angelo Cruz highlights another challenge. Many Filipinos understand significantly more English than they can comfortably express. This comprehension gap creates situations where a Westerner believes his partner fully understood complex statements when in fact she grasped only the general idea. Moving from words to relational dynamics, Western directness can inadvertently cause offense. When David from Seattle suggested his girlfriend change her outfit before meeting his colleagues, he thought he was being helpfully straightforward. She interpreted his comment as deeply humiliating criticism. His approach violated the Filipino principle of smooth interpersonal relationships, where criticism is typically wrapped in layers of affirmation. Family involvement further shapes communication patterns. Important decisions rarely involve only the couple. When Eric couldn't understand why his girlfriend suddenly canceled their weekend plans, he didn't realize her mother had expressed subtle disapproval that carried significant weight. The Filipino concept of utang na loob, debt of gratitude, makes declining requests difficult, as maintaining harmonious relationships takes precedence over personal preference. This can lead to commitments made primarily to preserve the relationship moment. Bridging these differences requires practical techniques. Experienced cross-cultural couples recommend offering options rather than yes-no questions. Instead of asking, "Are you okay with this restaurant?" try, "Would you prefer this restaurant or something more casual?" This provides choices without requiring direct refusal. Learning key Filipino concepts like haya, shame, face, pakikisama, harmony, and bahala, leaving things to fate, provides insight into the values driving communication patterns. Equally important is developing awareness of non-verbal cues, facial micro-expressions, body language, and vocal tone variations that often convey the true message. Creating safe spaces for honest communication requires deliberate effort. Setting aside regular, honest hours where directness is explicitly welcome can gradually build comfort with more straightforward exchanges. Anthropologist Francisco Benitez suggests discussing sensitive topics through hypothetical scenarios to maintain harmony while addressing important concerns. Patience becomes essential in navigating cross-cultural communication. Both partners need to recognize they're learning entirely different systems of meaning and relationship navigation. The rewards extend beyond avoiding conflicts. Couples who successfully bridge these differences often develop deeper emotional intelligence and more nuanced relationship skills than those who never face such challenges. The cultural minefield. The language of love may be universal, but the rules of Filipino social gatherings operate on an entirely different frequency, one where your well-intentioned actions might be silently destroying your relationship. What appears as harmless fun to Western eyes often registers as deeply offensive disrespect in Filipino family settings, creating wounds that never heal because they're never openly discussed. Just ask Kevin, an American who nearly lost his Filipina girlfriend Joanna after a seemingly innocent karaoke night with her family in Batangas. Kevin, eager to impress, grabbed the microphone first and belted out Frank Sinatra's My Way, a song he'd practiced specifically for the occasion. The room fell silent. Joanna's father abruptly left. Her brothers exchanged uncomfortable glances. Kevin had unwittingly committed a serious cultural faux pas. I had no idea that My Way is actually known as the killer karaoke song in the Philippines, Kevin explained. Apparently, dozens of people have been murdered over performances of that specific song. It's so notorious that many karaoke establishments actually remove it from their song lists. Weeks later, Kevin still felt the emotional distance that had formed between him and Joanna's family, a rift he couldn't understand until she finally explained. This phenomenon, documented by researchers at the University of Manila, reveals how deeply karaoke culture is embedded in Filipino social life. The My Way killings have been reported in mainstream news, with at least 6 documented cases where arguments over the song's performance resulted in fatalities. Singing it suggests either cultural ignorance or deliberate disrespect. Neither impression helps your relationship prospects. Food refusal creates similarly serious offenses in Filipino gatherings. When Joanna's mother spent hours preparing a special spread including dinuguan, pork blood stew, and balut, fertilized duck egg, Kevin's polite decline was interpreted as rejection of the family's hospitality. Cultural anthropologist Dr. Elena Cruz explains, in Filipino culture, food is not merely sustenance, but an expression of care and inclusion. Refusing offered food, particularly dishes that required significant preparation, communicates rejection of the relationship itself. A survey among 500 Filipino parents revealed that 78% considered respectful food acceptance a primary indicator of whether a foreigner would treat their daughter well in marriage. The religious dimension adds another layer of complexity. With Catholicism deeply intertwined with family life, casual jokes about religion or disrespectful behavior during religious practices can immediately mark you as unsuitable. During a family prayer before dinner, Kevin checked his phone, a seemingly minor action that Joanna's grandmother interpreted as mockery of their faith. Catholic traditions influence everything from conversation topics to physical gestures in Filipino households. Daniel, a British expat who married into a devout Catholic family in Cebu, shares, "I didn't realize I needed to make the sign of the cross when passing a church while driving. My wife's cousin noticed and later told everyone I lacked proper respect. It took months to repair that perception." The notion of haya, shame, and family honor magnifies these cultural missteps. Public behaviors that Westerners consider normal, raising your voice during friendly debates, showing affection to your partner, or drinking too many San Miguels, can humiliate a Filipino family during social gatherings. Jason from California discovered this after playfully teasing his girlfriend during a family reunion. "I thought I was being charming with some light banter. Instead, I learned later that I had caused her to lose face in front of important relatives." For them, my behavior reflected directly on her judgment in choosing me as a partner. The most dangerous aspect of these cultural offenses is their invisible aftermath. Unlike direct confrontations common in Western relationships, Filipinos rarely address these transgressions openly. Dr. Santos explains, the Filipino conflict resolution style prioritizes harmony over clarity. Rather than confronting the offensive behavior, family members will withdraw emotionally while maintaining surface politeness. This creates a perplexing situation for Western partners, who might never understand why the relationship suddenly cooled despite no apparent argument. By the time they recognize something's wrong, the damage may be irreparable, because it involves an entire family network whose approval is essential for the relationship's future. The path to recovery requires specific strategies tailored to Filipino social dynamics. Research by the Cross-Cultural Relations Institute suggests 3 effective approaches: observation before participation, private clarification, and respect for hierarchy. Observation involves restraint during initial family gatherings. Edward, who successfully navigated his relationship with Maria from Davao, shares, I spent the first 2 family gatherings mostly watching and listening. I noticed who spoke first, who served food, who made decisions. This helped me understand the invisible rules before I accidentally broke them. Private clarification means consulting your partner about expectations before social events. I always ask Joanna to brief me before we visit family. Kevin explains of his reformed approach. She explains who will be there, what topics to avoid, and any special customs I should know. Respecting hierarchy means recognizing the authority structure within Filipino families, addressing the eldest family members first, seeking their opinions, and showing deference demonstrates cultural competence that families notice and appreciate. Professor Manuel Santos notes, foreigners who acknowledge the family hierarchy, particularly by showing respect to elder family members, earn trust quickly. This respect signals that they understand their relationship exists within a broader family context. Specific taboos to avoid include discussing controversial politics, making jokes about Filipino English accents, comparing Filipino customs unfavorably to your home country, or failing to acknowledge important family members when entering or leaving gatherings. Recovery from missteps requires sincerity rather than defensiveness. When Kevin realized his karaoke selection had caused offense, his initial response, "It's just a song. Why is everyone so serious?" only compounded the damage. Later, after understanding the context, his sincere apology and genuine interest in learning about the cultural significance helped rebuild trust. Cultural navigation expert Maria Reyes emphasizes, when you make a mistake in a Filipino family setting, acknowledge it without qualification. Don't explain why your intention was innocent. Simply apologize and demonstrate through changed behavior that you respect their cultural boundaries. The sunset or scam trap, beyond family gatherings, lies perhaps the most financially devastating trap. The island vacation that begins with sunset walks but ends in financial ruin. Many men arrive in the Philippines with dreams of tropical romance, only to discover too late that their dream vacation was actually someone else's carefully orchestrated payday. Picture pristine waters stretching to the horizon, limestone cliffs towering over secluded beaches, and the undivided attention of a charming companion. This paradise quickly transforms into a financial quicksand, slowly but surely pulling victims deeper with each passing day. Greg experienced this in Palawan after dating Liza for 3 weeks in Manila. She suggested they escape to El Nido for the most beautiful beaches in the world. The first day delivered everything promised, natural beauty and romantic connection. By day 3, however, Greg's vacation budget had evaporated on expensive accommodations, surprise upgrades, and excursions that mysteriously included Liza's cousin and 2 friends. I was paying for 5 people's vacation, Greg explained. When I mentioned running low on funds, Liza became distant. By the next morning, she had fabricated a family emergency and disappeared, leaving me alone at a remote resort with a hefty bill. The sunset or scam trap combines emotional manipulation with geographical isolation. Unlike city-based scams, victims find themselves in unfamiliar paradise far from support systems. Tourist areas like Boracay, Siargao, and El Nido provide perfect settings, romantic and expensive, with limited transportation options. The financial undertow begins subtly. Your companion claims your researched budget hotel is in an unsafe area or has terrible reviews from her friends, steering you toward premium resorts costing 3 times as much. Once checked in, expenses multiply like waves in a building storm, each one larger than the last. Travel security consultant David Mendoza explains, these scammers make each expense seem reasonable in isolation. A sunset cruise for $80 sounds fair. A $120 seafood dinner seems appropriate for vacation. When covering these costs for multiple people daily, the financial damage accumulates rapidly. The orchestrators understand sunk cost psychology. After investing in flights and initial accommodations, you're committed to making the vacation work, despite mounting expenses. Your companion leverages this commitment by alternating between affection and disappointment, rewarding spending with attention and punishing hesitation with emotional withdrawal. Financial therapist Emma Taylor notes, men report their companion's mood would fluctuate dramatically based on spending. Budget activities suddenly became boring options that would ruin the trip, while expensive alternatives were opportunities to make memories. The pressure intensifies when your companion's friends or relatives coincidentally appear. Group activities emerge with the unstated expectation that you'll cover everyone. Refusing seems rude, especially when your companion insists, "It's just how we do things here." In elaborate schemes, artificial urgency prevents financial planning. James experienced this in Bohol. Marina claimed tours would be sold out tomorrow or prices increase next week, creating pressure for immediate booking. When I suggested researching alternatives, she'd become upset that I didn't trust her knowledge of her own country. Geographic isolation amplifies vulnerability. In remote destinations, transportation options are limited and often controlled by local networks. ATM access may be restricted to machines charging substantial fees. Some victims are encouraged to bring substantial cash, eliminating the possibility of disputing charges later. Robert Chen, who studies tourism-based fraud in Southeast Asia, notes these scams target men traveling alone. Perpetrators look for visitors with disposable income but limited travel experience in the Philippines. Men traveling solo who seem eager for companionship are ideal targets. The scam typically concludes when the companion manufactures a conflict once financial resources dwindle. They leave abruptly, often with unpaid shared expenses. In sophisticated scenarios, they maintain contact but create reasons why they can't continue, allowing them to pursue new targets while keeping you emotionally invested for future exploitation. The damage extends beyond the vacation itself. Victims report companions gathered sufficient personal information to attempt identity theft or unauthorized charges later. Others found themselves committed to non-refundable bookings they couldn't use. Tourism security specialist Miranda Santos explains, these scams succeed because victims often fail to report them, feeling embarrassed about being manipulated through romance. The perpetrators count on this silence. Protecting yourself requires maintaining financial independence. Arrange your own accommodation with a separate reservation, ensuring you can't be left with unexpected charges. Pay separately for activities rather than covering costs with promises of reimbursement. Set a clear daily budget and communicate it before the trip. Legitimate romantic interests respect financial boundaries. Be cautious when a new relationship quickly accelerates to expensive travel plans. Genuine connections develop through affordable local experiences too. Research prices independently rather than relying solely on a companion's recommendations. Book directly with official providers instead of through special connections. Pay attention to how your companion reacts when suggesting affordable alternatives. Their response reveals whether they're interested in shared experiences or financial extraction. Former scammer Angelica confirms, "We targeted men eager to impress with generosity. The goal was maximum value in minimum time. If someone established clear spending boundaries, we quickly moved to more promising targets. Legitimate shared travel experiences build naturally over time. Consider starting with day trips before committing to extended stays in remote locations. This allows you to observe how they handle financial discussions in lower stakes environments before the tide of expenses has a chance to pull you under." The social network trap. Those day trips might help you assess financial compatibility, but they won't prepare you for what happens when your three separate dating lives collide in a single Facebook notification. In the Philippines, the degrees of separation aren't 6. They're often just 1 or 2. Jason learned this lesson the hard way during what he thought was a perfectly orchestrated dating strategy across the archipelago. A software developer from Seattle, Jason maintained relationships with women in Manila, Cebu, and Davao, carefully scheduling his visits to avoid overlap. His system worked flawlessly for 5 months until a casual photo taken at a coffee shop in Greenbelt Mall appeared on his Facebook timeline. Within hours, all 3 women had discovered each other, compared notes through a rapidly expanding network of mutual connections, and coordinated a confrontation that left Jason's reputation in tatters across multiple cities. This social phenomenon thrives in the Philippines because of its dense information networks. The country ranks first globally in time spent on social media, with Filipinos averaging 4 hours and 15 minutes daily on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. This digital interconnectedness amplifies traditional social structures where extended family networks already create surprising links between seemingly unrelated individuals. Digital anthropologist Dr. Maria Reyes frames it clearly. In Philippine social structures, the concept of kapwa, or shared identity, creates an environment where information about foreigners travels remarkably fast. When combined with the country's exceptionally high social media usage, this creates hyper-connected community surveillance where actions in one location rapidly become known in others. The architecture of Filipino social networks follows distinctive patterns. Filipino Facebook users maintain an average of 76.3 connections, compared to the global average of 33.8. These connections feature higher rates of active engagement and information sharing than users in most Western countries. In Western contexts, friend groups often exist in separate clusters with minimal overlap, explains sociologist Dr. Ramon Aguila. In Filipino social structures, there's significant cross-linking between different social circles, creating numerous pathways for information to travel between seemingly unrelated groups. This network density transforms dating multiple people simultaneously into a high-risk activity. Digital footprints create inevitable connection points. Digital privacy researcher Carlos Mendoza documented telling examples. A man dating women in different cities was discovered when he used the same Grab driver in Manila, who happened to be the cousin of his girlfriend in Iloilo. In another case, a shared interest in a relatively obscure Korean drama created a recommendation algorithm connection that revealed multiple relationships. Information about foreigners travels through these networks at lightning speed. The Digital Society Institute found that key details reached extended friendship circles in under 48 hours. This velocity accelerates with relationship information, creating what researchers term high-velocity reputation effects. The emergence of Facebook groups focused on foreign Filipino relationships has intensified this phenomenon. Groups with tens of thousands of members become verification hubs, where women compare notes about potential partners, screenshots of conversations, dating profiles, and social media activity circulate regularly. This interconnectedness creates a relationship environment where reputations form with remarkable speed. Research shows that opinions about foreigners crystallize rapidly, and become resistant to change. Negative information spreads 3 times faster than positive information and creates more durable impressions. Alexander, a British expatriate in Cebu, experienced the fallout. I was casually dating 2 women in different neighborhoods, thinking there was no way they could know each other. Then I received identical text messages from both within minutes. They'd discovered each other through a Facebook group where someone had posted about seeing me with different women. The post had over 200 comments before I even knew it existed. Dr. Sandra Torres explains this as reputational cascades, where a single negative data point about a foreigner dating multiple women triggers widespread information seeking. Once established, these negative reputations proved remarkably persistent, following individuals even when they relocate to different regions. For foreigners, these networks operate largely invisibly. Filipino social organization includes complex webs of school connections, extended family relationships, regional associations, and professional linkages, creating numerous information pathways that aren't immediately apparent. The consequences manifest throughout daily life. Network security consultant Paulo Reyes documented cases where foreigners found their rental applications mysteriously rejected, business partnerships unexpectedly dissolved, or community invitations withdrawn after dating controversies spread. The informal information network creates soft barriers that many foreigners never fully understand. Reyes explains, how can you protect yourself in this interconnected landscape? First, practice transparency about relationship expectations. Dating coach Michelle Santos advises, being honest about seeing other people during the early stages is far less problematic than being discovered through social networks. Most Filipinos understand casual dating exists, but deception creates lasting damage to trust and reputation. Second, learn to map social connections. Relationship consultant David Wang suggests, pay attention to school ties, regional origins, and family networks. This awareness helps navigate the social landscape more effectively and prevents unexpected surprises. Finally, consider your digital footprint carefully. Ask yourself, who might see this photo? Could this check-in reveal my location to someone I'm not ready to tell? Who are the mutual connections between the people I'm dating? The most successful approach combines honesty with respect for Filipino social structures. Treating dating relationships with transparency doesn't eliminate the possibility of seeing multiple people initially, explains cultural integration specialist Maria Torres, but it creates a foundation of respect that allows genuine connections to develop without the risk of social network exposure. Now, as we wrap up our journey through these dating traps, remember that awareness isn't cynicism. The Philippines is home to countless genuine, caring women seeking authentic relationships. Your best protection is balanced awareness. Success comes from cultural respect paired with healthy boundaries, just like those happy international couples who thrive in this balance. What dating situations challenged you? Did you discover strategies we haven't covered? Share your story below. Our next episode takes us to a breathtaking coastal location, where we'll explore connections that cross oceans. Until then, navigate with both your heart and mind open.